we should be.
Yep, I
We're
see a
live
little
now.
note.
So we're live
Live
now,
on
guys.
Facebook.
We are gonna, thanks guys for joining. Elo Solarii and I are gonna join up some Wonder Powers Unite, and we're just gonna have some fatherhood conversation. And we are going to, we're just gonna have a conversation. Feel free to hop in, but give us a moment. First of all, if you are watching live, let us know where you're from. If you're watching replay, do the hashtag replay. We're gonna get set up here for a second. What's up, Chrissy? We are gonna get set up here a second and just do a couple shares, and we're gonna do some shares. Easy as that. So, Elo, let me tag you, brother.
I love sing song.
Elo.
Do do do.
So Elo is tagged.
I don't need to do anything then, because if you just tag me, that'll show up on my profile.
Will that show up?
Right?
Will that show up for your friends and share and whatnot? I don't know. I'm semi.
Let me check real quick.
Okay, go ahead. So, like I said, guys, give us a second while we kind of get hopped in here. What is Zoom? Zoom is kind of like I don't have a good answer for that. Zoom is just like a web conferencing platform, and and or like face-to-face interactive. Think of it as Skype, except for a different brand, if that helps. I just shared it to my own time. Like, give me one more second, guys. We're gonna get rolling here. And if you haven't met Elo yet, here he is.
Yeah, I'm back. It's all good. It's running smooth on my page.
Cool. Gonna have to hit you up about how Facebook live this. Bubba Downs, man, absolutely. Anytime you want to get together, I am always up for next to anything. All right, let me share to my Facebook Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, guys. So Fatherhood for the Rest of Us interview. We're gonna take it live. We got Saturday. We kind of got an afternoon, just kind of hang out here and have a conversation. I'll read off Eli's. Elo. How you messing up vowels, man. Messing up vowels. Never I cannot chew bubble gum and walk at the same time.
It's all good, man. It's just the name, right?
That's right.
You got it. You got me here.
I got you. So, guys, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us interview. I am on with Elos. It's because he's got all these. You got the double I's on the end of your name. Elo Solarii. He's 41 years old, from Portland, Oregon. He loves to draw. He's recovered from a once hopeless state of mind. I've mentored countless men away from the throes of addiction, worked in mental health care for 7 years, and he holds a bachelor's degree in human development. He's currently studying shamanism under a lineage directly connected to the Quero people of Peru. He's also a single father. He believes in magic, the greater power of humankind, the spiritual intuition of his son, and the earth as a living being. And you know what, man? I think not for nothing, that's kind of what I connected with you about. There was so Elo's, he's around, man. You see him, you catch his Facebook lives. He's got a lot going on and always has a lot to share, always has insight. Even before I jump into that, Elo, tell me something awesome that's going on for you today, brother. Tell me, what can we help you celebrate today?
Today, man, I fucking woke up.
Nice.
No, oh man, my first thought is what's there not to celebrate, right? Like, I'm like many humans in this world where I don't have it together. I fail miserably often, and I can still wake up and enjoy the moment of taking that deep breath. And one of the saving graces I have is if I feel like I'm having a really rough day because my shoelace broke or something, I can reach out to any number of people, either through Facebook, Messenger, my own personal private life, and just ask somebody else how they're doing. And there's a chance that the story is going to intersect with something worse off than me.
Right.
I remember one time, real quick, as a point of example, is I was having a really rough day deciding if something was going on. It was a while back, and I called my friend Bob, who lives in Eastern Oregon. And I said, before I even got into what my shit was, I said, how are you doing, Bob? What's going on? And he goes, well, I'm sitting here at a funeral home picking out the casket that we're going to bury my wife in, who's dying of cancer, and she's with me here with me right now.
Whoa. Yeah.
How's your day?
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I have no problems now. Like whatever I was concerned about, done. Like I'm not concerned about it anymore. We're good.
Right. No, man, absolutely. So you were just celebrating life, brother. You're celebrating life.
I try, man. I try to stay in the moment. And I was, kind of getting myself worked up to be here. I was just like, I need to brush my teeth. You're not gonna be smelling my breath, but I was like, I gotta do it for me.
That's for me.
No,
man, listen, yeah, I absolutely, I understand that. I put on deodorant a lot of times before I come to these Facebook lives, and I don't even know why. I'm like, I gotta get some. They're gonna be able to smell me, right? they're gonna know what's going on. They're gonna know I haven't showered today.
Oh man,
so awesome. Let's so what I wanted to say to one of the reasons I'm excited to have this conversation today, and I have a couple, but you're a member of the Fatherhood for the Rest of Us group. And some of the times, like, you pop in there and you would put like a challenge that you're having in there, right? And one of the things that I enjoyed about you putting that challenge in there is that you would put the challenge in and say, hey, I'm not looking for just like random advice for somebody who has an idea of what to do. Tell me if you've gone through this shit before, because that's helpful. Not like, somebody's like, well, here's a cool model of a way that you might be able to do it that I read in a book once. Right. So I always appreciate that. I'm going to talk to these real quick. So Facebook Live from car. Yes. In-laws are here. Just trying to let them enjoy themselves and the kids. And I want to focus my attention here on Elo. So you would ask for advice, but only from people who could really give an honest perspective. Can you tell me, how it seems like an obvious thing to do, but how did you kind of come to just start adding that tagline? Did you start like,
Yeah, no, I like that you cued into that, because, if I had to pinpoint the most devastating and profound thing that's happened in my life, it's becoming a father, becoming a daddy, more so. And at some point, like when my ex-wife and I realized we were going to be parents, we were getting advice from all kinds of like avenues. And the one that like really like twitched me wrong was, man, if I had kids, here's what I'd do. Like, I don't want to know what it would be like if you had kids. I want to know from the actual parents, like, what did you do that worked? Like, I don't want to have some random comment coming from somebody who has no experience. Like, that I can entertain that idea, sure. But in the reality that I exist, that's like shooting darts with a blindfold on, with no experience with a blindfold on. Like, I need to follow the ones that came before me that know what works. So I can then go, okay, there's that landmark.
Right.
There's that landmark for me to say, okay, they did this over here. If I can take that knowledge and switch it into it in a way that I can make it my own, but still lead from that example.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just unsolicited advice, and I'm not looking for that, man.
Right. I love it. I love it though, because you're always like, listen, I'm going through a challenge. Here's some things that are happening. If you have not been through it before, please don't even bother, basically. And that's how it's read. But I love it. I mean, because it just says that, hey, listen, please don't bother me with some secondhand story. And like you're saying, this whole, like, if I had kids, right? If
Well, and the magic happens in the experience. Otherwise, without that, you're just receiving someone's unadulterated opinion.
Right.
And that's all that is. And I don't need opinions. I need experience.
Right. And then I think the other part that kind of weighs in there too. How do you go ahead and pick, so somebody does have experience. How do you determine whether or not you're going to value that person's experience?
I value everyone's experience. It may
Mm.
not work for me
Hmm.
in that moment, but I value and honor the fact that they took the time to share that experience with me.
Yeah.
Um, and the best part about experience or sharing of any sort of information, knowledge, or wisdom is that we get to pick what works for us and leave the rest.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
just because you give me your experience doesn't mean I have to follow that to a T. I might come back to you and be like, wow, I really appreciate you sharing that. Um, Based on my circumstances or my own system, I'm not able to follow that the way you did it, but I took what you said to heart and I applied a few steps from that,
Right.
and it comes down to communication and respect within that communication, I think. Um, you know, that's the best part about experience, is that if you're giving me truly 100% of your experience, there's no opinion in it. That's what you did. It's not what you think or how you feel. It's what you did.
Right.
So if it works for me, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If I gain your experience, I am then able to make a more well-informed decision with my own path to gain my own experience.
Sure. Sure. Awesome. And then and then the other reason I reached out to you and I got excited is you're you're following a shamanistic path, right? You're and not only and not only that, like I love, I believe in magic and a couple of things that you put in your bio. But one of the things that you had done, and you I think you did a Facebook Live on, and it was also, you're having kind of a rough night, but your son had called up and you were having he was like, hey, listen, I'm scared about XYZ, and you told him to, like, you take his fears or something like that. You'll fix whatever is coming out of my mouth, and blow it
Yeah,
into a rock, right?
blow the fear into the rock. Yeah.
Right, which I thought was, man, I thought that was, I still think that's the cat's meow, even if nobody says that now ever again. I think that was a really awesome insight and a way to you helped your son in such a cool way, that makes me wonder why don't we think like that more. Like, where did that thought come from? I think you told me where it came from, and then just like, let's talk a little bit about shamanism.
Right. Yeah, man, that's it's an interesting dynamic, right? So there's I'm gonna generalize with a few things here that really trip my own self up. I've begun to seek into shamanism because I'm a seeker. I've been a seeker as far back as I can remember. I strayed away from my childhood faith, that my parents were kind of bringing me into, and it didn't make sense to me. And so I started reading all kinds of books on meditation and religion, and I started seeking out temples and churches and all kinds of different stuff. And I started taking classes about religion and spiritual pathways, and and there was so much out there, man, so much out there, and they all kind of intersect at these interesting points where they all have a similar narrative, right? Where the religion part comes in, and once again, I kind of took that wisdom and I applied what works for me, and I left the rest. But through a series of events, without going into too much detail, I ended up meeting the instructor to this program here in Portland, who is a student of a direct lineage out of Peru. They're doing an expedition in October, and they do an expedition like every year or every 2 years, depending on what the need is.
Right.
And they go down and they immerse themselves and live with her teachers, her masters, for like 2 months, right?
Mm.
And they just kind of live and experience that. I could be wrong on the 2 months thing. It might be a little off, but it's somewhere around that time frame. And so I met her through. I went on this blind date through a dating app, and the person I went on a date with was one of her students. So she led me into this, hey, go check out this free shaman, like shaman 101 thing. I'm like, all right, whatever. What do I got to lose?
Right.
And some time passed, and I ended up not being able to go to this full moon drum circle that I normally go to here in town. But a different friend called up and said, hey, I know of this fire ceremony that you might be into since you can't go to your drum circle, and they drum and all that, I guess. And so I'm like, okay, let's go check it out. It happened to be at that instructor's house.
Huh.
And there was a full like bonfire and some chanting that kind of weirded me out, and some drumming and some prayer. And I was like, what's really going on here? Like, I don't know what the intention is here. I don't know much. So I did a little reading on shamanism, and I talked with Rosemary about what she does with this school. That's the school is Rising Fire, and I got to know a little bit more about the angle and the intention and what the drive is and what the whole process is. And in no way does it challenge me to change my belief system.
Mm-hmm.
It's providing tools that allow me to gain deeper insight, right? And so that was fun. I went to that fire ceremony. Fast forward about 3 or 4 months, I ended up going to a different drum circle at a person's house, who is a student of Rosemary's that I met at that fire ceremony, who introduced me to who is now my roommate who I live with, because
Right.
I was seeking for this. I was getting evicted. I needed to find a place. She said, hey, I got this 2-bedroom place here. Check it out. And I didn't really know that she was a student of Rosemary's. And we got to talking, and she's doing the shamanic stuff too. And I was like, I am just being guided. I need to just get out of my way and look at what's in front of me, and I'm being guided here.
Yeah.
And I'm a little behind in my readings before the next one. I hope to get that accomplished before the end of April. And the thing that weirds me out based on my childhood faith. So I grew up in around a big community of Catholic and Christian, and magic was always frowned upon, which really baffled me, because you're talking about an immaculate conception and a person who walked on water and a person who turned water into wine. If that's not magic, I don't know what is, right?
All
Like,
money back.
so the idea of being, as a young adult, being kind of the black sheep of the family who had this inclination to be drawn into magic stuff, even though maybe the word has that stigma to it from back in the day, like witches and warlocks, and I embrace it. I am a self-proclaimed male witch, and
Right.
I will read tarot cards, and I will pull runes from a bag, and I will help you gain your insights,
Sure.
and I'm not sitting here pulling a rabbit out of a hat. I'm just helping you discover the truth within you, and you
Sure.
do that.
Right.
I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. So
Right. I mean, we can go a lot of directions with that, right? The whole idea of we'll just even kind of look at like tarot cards and look at like tarot cards and runes, and we'll throw in coaching to the bag, right? And we'll just say, how are the three kind of similar? What would you say to that?
it comes down to the word insight. It's all about strengthening our personal insights. So through my own recovery and wellness, through my own shift in my consciousness, I had a handful of mentors that taught me one thing primarily. If I had to break their teachings down to one thing, it was, we've all got these voices, whether we want to call them voices or temptations. The cartoon of the angel and the demon, right? You got the angel saying, do the good thing, and the demon saying, fuck that, do the negative thing. Let's do this. Let's get in trouble, right? Let's go make some trouble, right?
Right.
Tarot, rune, shamanic insights with the seer stones, the coaching, all of that stuff. What it all boils down to is presenting tools that we allow the angelic voice to be louder,
Right.
so that we can hear that, instead of the go rob the lady's purse because you need the money because times are tough,
Sure.
versus let's make this one loud. It says, go help somebody for free because it will come back to you amazingly in ways you never even could dream of.
Right. Right.
Right.
Sure.
It all comes down to strengthening our insights. I believe we've lost contact with that over the course of generations through traumas that took place before we were even born. Traumas from if you think about what maybe your great grandmother or grandfather went through, and at some point there were eggshells to be walked on, there were secrets to be hidden, there were resentments to be fueled at some point, and the communication through that started transversing into each next generation, right? And so we have this ancestral wounding in our lives, and some of that boils down to the teachings of, these old school teachings, like speak when spoken to. Like you don't want to be the loud one in the room, get small. Those kind of things that we don't necessarily go about our conscious day trying to fix. We just go about our day droning on. And how many times have you asked somebody, hey, what should I do here?
Right.
I have this decision from what should I do? How are they going to know what you should do? You know what you should do if you just ask the right questions and dig deep, right? So I've done a huge transformation in removing should from my language, unless I'm talking about it in this sort of context.
You don't want to be a shithead?
I don't like shooting on my parade or yours, man.
Right
I don't
on,
like shooting on anything.
I love it.
And the idea is ask the right questions, and the answers are in us, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you go about teaching those questions to ask, right? Is one. And then I love, what did you say? Ancestral wounds, right? Is that what you said?
Ancestral wounding. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely love that. And a little bit of, how do you peel some of that back? What do you do to deal with that?
I fail. I fail regularly. The first word that came to mind when you started this line of questioning was repetition. You can't teach those questions and make them stick overnight, I think. If I presented a small slideshow of who I was before I started making this conscious shift in my life, you would maybe not believe that was actually me.
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm gonna tell you right now, I would. All right, listen, I 100% would. Trust you, me. So, I would, and maybe somebody else wouldn't, but I believe it.
Well, if you would, that means I haven't done enough work on me yet.
Then keep it up. Keep it up. How about this though? Like, how about like learning the right questions to ask, peeling back some of the ancestral wounds, but teaching your son to you keep it from reopening or healing, helping your son with that healing process. How's that?
Yeah, it looks tough. It really looks tough. It looks like a lot of repetition. It looks like a lot of patience. For me personally, paying attention and listening. I tend to interrupt and try to teach instead of listen to be taught.
Okay.
My son can tell me more about what's going on with him than I can, and I will try to be like, I'll try to interject and tell him, like, try to bring in this parenting, like, disciplinary sort of, it'll be all right if you just follow my rules. But he's trying to tell me something deeper that's going on with him, and he's at a stage where he doesn't have the vocabulary to do it, but he has the emotional unrest to lash out. And if I'm not in a space to receive that in a teachable moment, then I lash out with him. And then it's this domino effect of just like energies rising and frustrating moments. And,
Yeah,
and it's
listen,
painful.
absolutely. I'm right there with you. Kind of in a relational sense that my younger son is very similar in the sense that like you can sense the emotional turmoil, but it's like what do you do? What are some tools do you feel like you're giving your son to help him with that emotional turmoil?
Uh, Specifically, hopefully the freedom to express himself right
Mhm.
now. Um, it'll all I can't specifically tell you the exactness because I don't know what's sticking for him until like 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Um, but if I stay true to what I know and how I have developed, um, then it will be a game of repetition for my knowledge and my experience. So we looked at the rocks. We've talked about, so he's being raised in a faith that is not mine. Um, uh, his mom and I differ in spiritual leanings, and part of the agreement was she gets to teach him that, and I said that's okay as long as you're going to be if you're long as you're okay with me having information available to him. If at some point he said, I don't get this, mom, why doesn't dad show up here, how let me talk to him, and she's honestly she's not okay with that, but that's the gift of being a co-parenting divorced parent, right? I get to deal with that. And I get to be patient and keep a level head the best I can about it. So when he is ready and he comes to me, I can have this information available for him. I've been back and forth struggling with my own emotional stability through many dynamics regarding the divorce, parenting, my own frustration, being able to at this point not be financially secure, and struggling in that realm of my life. I've been here for a year, this house or this apartment, and prior to that I had moved 4 times within a year,
Mhm.
um, just due to situational dynamics that presented itself as not as nurturing as I had once thought moving into a place. um, so so yeah, between that and losing some jobs, losing some employment, and trying to push this into a more entrepreneurial sense and working on my own, in many different areas, I hopefully am showing him that it's okay to fail and never give up and follow your dreams, and it's okay to pray even when people around you say it may not be okay to pray, um, and that if you have faith in that positive leaning, if you have faith that you're taken care of, no matter what happens, then there's no reason for that fear to release itself in that devastating way that it can.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so
powerful. That's powerful. I mean, because to teach that at how old is he?
7.
Yeah, to teach that at such a young age, and to I think that's a great thing to teach them. I think that's a wonderful
and I
teaching.
and I don't know that I'm doing it in words that he sees it that way. And it's definitely not all one. It's not all one lesson. It's, I'm not sitting him down and doing one single workshop with him. Like, these are just little things that are taking place, and hopefully over time they'll kind of stick, and he'll be able to have hindsight and be like, oh, that's what dad was talking about.
Listen, man. I don't know about you, but I remember stuff that my mom or my grandfather or even like some coworkers who were fairly knowledgeable on what they had to say. You know, it, 10 years later, 20 years, 30 years, I'm 40, 40 and change now. I'm like, oh, that's what she was saying. That's what, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that if you reflect on your own life, there's probably some things that, your parents or some mentor or somebody that was in your life said to you, 20, 30 years ago is finally showing up. You're like, takes me a while, but I get it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm sure that your son will at some point, reap that benefit or come to that understanding and understand what it is that you're saying. And again, I think it's an awesome thing to be teaching them. for
Yeah,
sure.
the biggest struggle right now is he's just now coming into this emotional release regarding the divorce that took place.
Mm,
He's 7 now. We separated when he was 18 months old, and then divorced a year later.
mhm.
Um, and and I don't think any one of us was really understanding of the dynamic that was going to ensue because of that, like the emotional trauma with him. Um, and my experience in that marriage is that it was going to be worse if we stayed together.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't want to keep yourself in a toxic environment if if you can
Yeah.
see no way out of it. I don't, it doesn't make sense, and so it also doesn't make sense to stick in that toxic environment and expose your children to that.
Yeah, and the toxicity, I think there's still some levels of it. It's definitely not as prominent as it was, so it's tough, man. Toughest game ever. It's the toughest game I've ever played. So,
Is this? I mean, this isn't. It's kind of like one of those things. You talked about it earlier, where you just said that you kind of respect everybody and their opinions and where they come from, and that kind of levels the playing field, right? Like everybody's experience is their own experience. It may not be yours, but and it's just in like the relationship field, right? Like there's really no winner. Like there's no winner, and nobody's trying to win per se. But sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes it feels like that's what's happening.
yeah, for sure.
Um, Want to talk about too, what it is that you're doing now, right? Like you shared a really awesome story with me as it related to you do the art. And if you guys never caught like Elo kind of drawing and doing a live, I think that's awesome too. Like watching you actually do a picture is really cool. If you never caught that
Yeah.
and don't know that he's an artist. He's an artist. Um, and you were out looking, you were pimping yourself out, and you reached out to an artist, or you reached out to a coach, right? A coach out in the UK, had a conversation, because you want to do some artwork for her, right? Is that
No, I can see where that might have been a misleading story in that regards. Um, uh, so I had reached out. I saw this post by a wonderful, amazing coach by the name of Karina Sarah over in the UK, and she had posted this thing about how she was expanding her venture and she was hiring somebody, and that she was looking to hire a couple more people down the road. And I inquired, I said, what are you hiring for? What's the business?
Mhm.
Knowing that she was a coach, but didn't know if that was what she was referring to. Um, and she said that she was hiring for some videographers, somebody to do the video streaming for her. And that's not my deal. And I've had a lot of people kind of comment to me about how, this seems like I connect with people on a really natural level that um, seems fluid and flows really well. And have I ever considered coaching? I've done the mentoring through addictions. I worked in mental health care for 7 years. I've got the educational background in human development, all of that stuff. And I explained that to her. I said, oh, well, if, if any of my live streams, pique your interest on what I'm talking about, and you need an additional speaker for anything that you're doing, keep me in mind. And she said, oh, I didn't know you were into that. I said, well, I'm not licensed or anything in that regards. And when I explained to her my resume real briefly, like I just did with you, she said, she had this moment of exclamation, was like, wow, you're more qualified than most coaches I know.
Right.
And it got me thinking. And so I looked into like what I need in Oregon. And I just need a business license. And as a coach, you don't need to be a certified coach in Oregon. Um, if you have developed a program or a pathway that helps people develop and grow, and you have a business license, you can get
Right.
paid for it.
Nice.
And so I put that all together, and I got a secret Facebook page that has private content for that. And I just created a logo that I'm going to put on some merch for my clients that is no cost to them.
Nice, man.
Get a rep the logo. It's pretty
Nice,
awesome.
man. Nice. So I mean, but so you went like, you went from this kind of like, it sounds to me, you went from like this kind of space of you're talking about losing a couple jobs here and there, this nothing like seems to be kind of going your way. I'm just gonna say, it sounds like you got a hard luck story and you turn it around, Elo.
It,
You know
it
what I mean?
feels like it. It
Right? And that's
feels like it,
awesome,
right?
right? Like I think it was really exciting to hear your story, and that is working out, like, and that's kind of coming together. How are you feeling about it now? What type of I hate calling it clients, right? What kind of people are you working with, man? Who are you out there helping today?
Humans, man.
Mm, nice.
Period.
Nice. And are you, I'm sure that each person is working from an individual level and aspect, and each program is kind of
Yeah.
designed, and individually tailored. But do you weave in like all your shamanistic? Do you weave in your
We
magic?
haven't. I don't get into the shaman stuff because I'm not at that place yet. With um, I have been inducted into shamanic teachings for myself. I
Mm-hmm.
am not in any way prepared to do uh, the the shamanic stuff, the straight shamanic stuff that I've been learning. That
Mm-hmm.
is not in a way for me to. I don't feel right completely infusing that, just
Okay.
because I want to honor the culture and the tradition, and I want to honor the pathway. I can I can do a little bit of it. I suppose I don't look at the tarot and the runes as part of the shamanic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been doing that since I was like 19, learning about like runes, and more recently the tarot stuff. That's completely separate from the shaman stuff.
Sure.
Um,
But I'm saying, like,
however,
there's an aspect of influence from everything that
yeah,
you do
yeah,
that you
sure,
kind of bring
sure.
it into
That
this. That's all. I
a
mean,
little bit
that's not, I'm not saying that you're making shaman soup and saying, "Hey, drink the shaman drink." I'm just
of
saying, you got bits and pieces of not just your experience, but you
yeah.
got the education, you got the actual, certification of education, and then you've also got these other things that you've gone out and learned that not a whole lot of people have looked into. Like, again, I'm using shamanism as a reference, right? Like
No,
as
I got you. So what I can tell you is that what I do in that field is that I much like I referenced with my son, is I listen, I pay attention. So if you're coming to me wanting to hire me as a coach, hypothetically, I'm going to have a conversation with you, and I'm going to pay attention to a couple of things that you might say that you may not have realized you said, or the way you said it, and
Mhm.
we're going to touch into that, because we can totally skim over a deep subject thinking you're talking about something over here, but
Right,
really you want to focus back here at what you tried to jump over real quick, right?
right.
And so then I'll tailor a little plan of action, and
Mhm.
from there it's it's about who's willing to do the work.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. Like, I can't force you to do the work. You know, my hope is that if you're hiring me as a coach and you're paying me, you're going to do the work. But if you don't, and you're still paying me, I'm not going to hound you on it. Like, you're going to go at your pace,
Well,
right?
yeah. Hey, listen, everybody, and that's the truth, though, right? That's the truth. This is another thing that I'm sure you found is like everybody's got to go at their own pace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this may be a space too where uh you might have like an expectation, but you kind of got to let go of some of those expectations, right? We're just like, all right, listen, I can see you're working through it, and that's the exciting part, for me anyways, to watch like another human progress, or another, not even progress, just like what you typed into your bio too, that I wanted to hit on, was like stepping into yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So watching and helping another person step into themselves, And I'm actually just going to ask you what that means. What does it mean to step into yourself?
It means to discover the things that call to you, call to me. When I step into myself, it's about looking at my day, looking at my day ahead, the week ahead, whatever denomination of time I'm looking at, and saying, what are my goals, and what can I do to accomplish that right now? It can be something super simple, super, not a lot of time. We talk about meditation often. A lot of people are under this understanding that meditation, you need at least 20 minutes to 2 hours to sit down and do Om in a crisscross applesauce dance. And the reality is, the best meditation I've ever done that revolutionized a 3-day span of my life was a 45-second meditation. That's
Give it
all it was. And
whatever.
I didn't have to turn anything off. I was standing with my eyes open, TV on, windows open,
Right, man.
traffic running by.
Yeah, this is like being in Oregon and be like, hey, that weed's awesome. There's none left. What's the 45-second rule, dude? Like, I mean, what's the 45-second thing?
So I might work at a weed farm, but I don't really smoke weed. So just clarify that, right?
Right. Okay. I don't know if it's a disclaimer for top hopper. I don't even know. I buy it, but I don't. It's legal, so I mean.
Right. I don't drink either, and that's legal.
Well,
So
you said that was that's another cool thing too. Like, I mean, that's how long for you now?
June 14th will be 14 years.
Congratulations, man.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
So the 14-second meditation, 45-second meditation was, I was standing, I didn't change anything in my environment, and I took a deep breath in and a deep breath out, and I did that in repetition. And with each in-breath, I said, I am the love. And with each out-breath, I said, release the fear. And as I did that, I pictured my crown chakra, the top of my head, opening up like a blossoming flower, and a white light coming through me, filling me with the energy and the space and the universal love that already exists, but visualizing that it is actually there to fuel my day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the mantra: I am the love, release the fear.
Nice.
And I still use that. It's an amazing adventure. I don't have to sit or change any of my environment. Windows open, heater going, whatever's happening, family arguing in the background, like whatever. I don't need it to be quiet for that to happen.
Right.
And for stepping into myself, it's recognizing, while I'm starting this, I want to touch on the coaching thing real quick in regards to that. I'm approaching it a little bit differently. And as a result, I don't know if it's the result of it. I don't have this like constant stream of clients coming in at me, because I've discovered, as a trend, coaching, it's pretty safe to say it's in this trending business right now. You can market yourself too hard and get no clients, or you can market yourself too little and get no clients. And so there's like this balancing act that I don't know where it's at. So what I do is I just be me. And if people are attracted to what I have to offer, they hit me up. And I take a really relaxed approach. I don't chase you. There's no point in me chasing you. Me chasing you means you're running away from me. Like, I don't want to chase you. Right. But stepping into me is realizing, I've got this calling in art. It's my passion. It's what I love. I love helping people, and I love drawing. And I'm putting together a fantastic opportunity for a lot of people that love my art right now. I'm making these drawings. Let me show you real quick. Many of you that are viewed in here have probably already seen it. I put this together the other night. These are two separate images. Oh, that's upside down. So this is the way this one reads, and then that's the way, that's upside down. Yeah. This is the way this one reads.
Okay.
And then I did this one last night. And these are going to be transferred into stickers, smaller stickers. And people who are interested in obtaining some of my art let me grab something here. I have this book of art. I showcased this the other night on a live stream. my original art stems anywhere from we're looking at like $150 for an original drawing up to $430. And that's for the smaller pieces. The larger pieces are in the, $900 to $1,200 range.
Right.
So what I'm doing is I'm putting these stickers together so you can purchase a sticker, and then with the sticker comes a free raffle ticket. And then I'll be doing a drawing where you'll be able to get to choose between so many drawings that I have, so many artwork drawings that I have set aside to pick from if your number gets pulled, right?
Nice, man.
Yeah. So
Where's that happening? Like, let's say, when is that happening? Where can that happen?
that'll be happening on Facebook sometime soon. I'm still in the process of putting these stickers together, but I'm letting people know that the drawing is going to be happening.
Well,
The
Elo,
raffle.
do you have a website?
I don't, just Facebook, man.
Okay.
Just Facebook right now.
Do you have a Facebook like a business page?
Elo draws things, or or Instagram.
Right.
Here's some of my art.
Okay. Very cool, dude. Absolutely.
All freehand. And yeah, so that'll be fun.
Very cool. Very cool. So you've got
I'll be posting some notifications about that soon. And one of the things that's going to be also up for grabs in the free drawing with the purchase of a sticker is I'm going to be raffling off the original artworks of the stickers.
Nice, dude. Very cool.
So
very cool. That'll be fun. So Elo Draws is the business page?
Elo draws things. Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Just want to make sure.
I'm Elo and I draw things.
Sweet. I just want to make sure people. I want to make sure people can, reach out to you and know where you're at, right?
Yeah. On Instagram, you can find me at Elo Solarii.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Let's flip it over into fatherhood, brother. Just we'll run down the fatherhood questions and take it from there. You talked about becoming a dad, that changing your life. Child's 7, you became a dad probably around the same age as me. I think 34, right? 34, 30, around then.
Yes.
What would you say fatherhood means to you?
Oh, that's a small question with a big answer. Or a big question with little words. It means shifting and changing in a way that words really can't describe. There's so many avenues to it. So my child was first off, I'm really not a big fan of the hospital we went to. They were under the impression my child was going to be a 9-pound baby with Down syndrome. And they had repeatedly encouraged us to get an abortion.
Wow.
And at some point we said, ask it again and we're taking you to court. Like, we're not having that. We want to love our baby, right? And my son came out 6 pounds, so many ounces, and not with Down syndrome. And there was a brief moment where my heart sunk. I was embraced with sadness. I was really looking forward to raising a child with Down syndrome because of, while the life expectancy isn't as long, children with Down syndrome don't follow into suit with the shit that kids get into. That, statistically speaking, kids with Down syndrome don't join gangs. They don't commit suicide. They don't have depressive trauma. They don't have they don't get involved in drugs or alcohol. On all statistical avenues, they are happy, joyous, and free. And when I learned that my son was not gonna have Down syndrome, I was kind of sad.
Wow.
Because I was like, fuck, now I got to put in work. Not to say that parents with kids who have Down syndrome don't put in work. It's probably a much harder job
Sure.
in many different ways. And what I've experienced is fear. As a parent, I have been embraced with lots of different angles of fear. Um, uh,
What are some of
and
your
it
biggest fears on that, Elo?
uh,
Or even not even big, but like the most repetitive fears.
um, that there'll be some sort of physical or sexual trauma based on statistics, that my son will somehow have a no touch zone touched by somebody he trusts.
Mm.
I have a fear of uh, the repetition we've been seeing in the news since Columbine.
Mm-hmm.
I have a big fear of that. I have I have a fear that I don't try to feed into, but that I'm going to fuck him up
Mm.
in a way that I don't know how to repair because of whatever trauma he goes through. My son is an extremely sensitive child who,
Right.
when he gets angry, he uses the divorce as a weapon, and he starts using phrases like "I hate myself. I never wish I was born. Why are
Mm.
you my daddy?" Like things like that, and it's all stemming from this idea that he wants a family dynamic that he sees all of his friends have and his cousins have, that he
Right.
doesn't have, and that's a dynamic where mom and dad live together.
Right.
And in his head, that's a dynamic that makes the world right.
So
It puts everything into perspective for him, and he doesn't have that. So
you're witnessing the beginning of social conditioning, right?
yeah,
And this kind of it leads into the question though too of what was your relationship like with your dad? Did he fuck you up? If so, how? Or if I don't know your entire backstory, but like I didn't have a
yeah,
father, so I'm almost it and the dad that I did have was an abusive man. So if he had been in my life, then maybe I would have been more jacked up or jacked up in a different way, right?
right.
So uh
Well, just now learning that about you actually puts my fear at ease a little bit for my son.
yeah,
um, I came from a very loving family that didn't understand me and made it unsafe to talk about a lot of things. But nonetheless, I had a very loving childhood. I had a father who always worked and a mom who tried to save everyone else's family doing the social work stuff that she did.
hmm,
Um, my mom and I rarely got along after the age of 14 um, or 15, something like that. And my dad, my dad just kind of he had these blinders on, and he had one chore after chore, project after project lined up that my mom put in front of him. And so he was always busy with either work or something going on to help fix the home a little bit better.
hmm.
My dad passed away 5 years ago, which
So
was one of the catalysts to the divorce that took place, because 2 months after that, in the wake of all my grief, my wife took my son and left and said,
wow.
"I need you gone by the time I get back."
Mm,
Um, and and I know there's two sides to every story, and what I experienced and what she was experiencing, two totally different things. The reality is that um, after I made the conscious shift to adjust my way of living into sobriety, my dad and I developed and rekindled a relationship beyond my wildest dreams with him. I think I was probably about 6 months to a year sober, and I came over to his house, and my dad was the glue that bound everything together, right? My dad was the one that always, like, every Sunday we're doing barbecue, my house, be there. We're doing it. I want to see everyone here. He kept everything together. And since then, since his passing, the family has not come together like that. And I don't have a working relationship with my mom anymore.
mm,
Um, at that time though, that I got sober, my dad said, I approached my dad and I said, we used to, put our hands out. Hey, buddy, welcome. He, shake my hand and kind of come in for a one shoulder. And I'd be like, stop. Can I have a hug? And he goes, what? And I said, can I have a hug, like a real hug? He's like, you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I just miss my dad, and I can't remember the last time that you and I actually gave each other a warm embrace.
Hmm.
And he came in for the hug, and he did that, the bro hug.
Yeah, yeah,
I
sure.
stopped him after like second slap, and I'm like, stop. I just need you to hug me without hurting me. I'm not trying to tell him that I'm weak. I'm just like, just hold me, man. You're my dad. Don't
Yeah.
hit my back. And he gave me a hug, like a real hug.
Yeah.
And from that point forward for the following 8 years before his passing, we never greeted or left each other's company without a warm embrace.
That's great. That's
And we
great.
just came in and we just held each other for a minute. And if you've never held in a, if you've never given a platonic warm embrace to another man as a man, you are completely doing yourself a disservice, my man. It is one of the most wonderful things I have ever done.
Sure.
And I spent a long time promoting that warm embraces between men, just reconnecting with that, with a friendship that starts with that embrace.
Sure.
And so my dad and we had a really good relationship. When he passed, it was a clean slate. Like I didn't have no regrets there. So growing up, my dad and I got along. Like I said, he worked a lot. So when shit hit the fan, he was always the last to find out. And
Right.
he always got upset about that. And through my sobriety, we adjusted what went wrong. Like we looked at where I was hurt and where I could have been better at the same time, and we made amends for that. My mom, on the other hand, it after my dad passed, that relationship snowballed. The dynamic that it took her down, and then the way she reacted in life to that, to me, destroyed a lot. As a kid, though, I was afraid. I lived in complete, utter anxiety for 24 hours a day of my waking days. So I guess it'd be more like 16 hours a day. But I struggled with anxiety, um, uh, self-mutilation. Like I would shave the tops of my hands with potato peelers just to get a feeling, a physical feeling, because I didn't know how to deal with emotional feeling. Right.
Yeah, let's
I
hit
was
that. Let's hit that real quick. Let's hit that because
I was too afraid to cut myself because I figured I'd cut too deep, and I didn't really want to die.
no, yeah,
So I
yeah.
did have a fascination with death, but
It's this idea and I'm gonna I'll tie it to like giving your dad the hug, right? Or your dad the busybody, and just males in general in Western society not being given the tools to have conversations about emotions like you're having with your son, emotions and feelings, which it sounds like shaving your hand as a cutter because you didn't have the tools that you needed. What talk to it, man. How did you find your way out of that?
meth.
And then
Yeah, it was just a progression. It didn't hold any weight anymore, and I got more deeper into that. Was the cutting happened before the drug abuse,
mm-hmm.
and I found that if I numbed myself out, I didn't have to worry about either one, physical or emotional pain.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, and it wasn't a conscious decision at that moment. It just kind of distracted myself, right?
Absolutely.
And in between all of that, I found a passion in being creative, drawing, writing. I used to write a lot of poetry and short stories, being productive in that way, which is what I'm getting back to now, right?
Sure.
Uh, I always wanted to have a family dynamic where we could talk about anything. So when I'm on a live stream or I'm doing a coaching session and I'm bringing up Q&As, I'm saying like, no topic is taboo. And I literally mean it. Like no topic is taboo. I don't feel that there should be anything in the world we can't we can't address with maturity, whether that's, you know, violence, sex, uh, family dynamics, whatever the case may be. Like, we should be able to identify and approach it in a way that is productive and constructive.
Right.
So, and I didn't have that as a kid. Like, I didn't have the sex talk with my parents until after I'd already had sex. Like, why did that happen?
And that also strikes me as curious, given the fact that your mom worked in. It sounds like she worked in that environment, right? She said she was a social helper.
Yeah, my mom was connected to victim services here in town.
Yeah.
So she would work with victims of domestic abuse and sex assault and things like that.
I'm just out of curiosity. I mean, do you feel like maybe she brought a lot of that home and just had that on her mind or something like that, and just wasn't able to kind of give back because it all been kind of drained out of her?
I don't know. I try not to speculate on what she was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm not in her head. I I did have a talk with her when I was 16. It was more of me yelling at her than a talk, but it was I was frustrated that she spent all this time helping other families, but her own family was was floating away right in front of her, and she wasn't doing anything about it.
Right.
And I was a very angry 16-year-old that held it together. So you didn't always know if I was upset because I kept it bottled up.
Right.
And and I utilized my art to kind of release a lot of that stuff. Um, that recently happened with a pretty giant piece that I did, this Pegasus that I don't know if you've seen or not. So I take those emotional frustrations and I put it into something creative, and I try to turn that into something beautiful. I ran with a difficult crowd for a long time, and it just stopped working. And at some point I started paying attention more consciously, where the world, if we keep our heart open, the world will show us a path that is beneficial to our sanity. For instance, in 2003, I found myself passed out at a bus depot with a bunch of weed on me.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, marijuana was illegal here.
Right.
And it was actually not too far from where I live now. And the story goes that a canine unit showed up, and I knew the jig was up, man. I wasn't gonna run.
Right.
Dogs run faster than me.
Sure.
Drunk at 3 a.m. in the pouring rain.
Yeah.
So I accepted the situation and I went to jail. That led me to the psych ward for a few days. Coming out of that, I was bunked in an intake pod where this kid started cracking jokes about a book that had miraculously appeared under his bunk, and he didn't know how it got in there, but he cracked it open and started cracking jokes about it. Excuse me. And it was the book to Narcotics Anonymous. And I just said, man, what are you doing? And he goes, what are you talking about? This is funny stuff. And I'm like, why don't you, instead of just mocking it, why don't you make it available to somebody who might be able to use it? Put it back on the bookshelf where you don't think it came from. Right. And he's just like who, you? And it was that moment of clarity when he asked me a question and I honestly gave an answer. I'm like, well, I'm in here because of all that stuff. Sure, why not? Let me take a look at it.
Right.
And I looked at it with an open mind and an open heart. And that led me to my first meeting when I got out. And that led me to, meeting a few people that kept taking me down this pathway into better healing. Right. And, paying attention to the signs the universe gives us so that we can slowly step into ourselves or quickly step into ourselves, whatever the pace may be.
Right. Right.
So.
Absolutely, man. No, that's great. You gotta figure out your way. Definitely got to figure out your way. What you're big into the art. We know that you have read at least Narcotics Anonymous, the book. What else?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't read all of it.
Are you a
I've,
reader? Are you a reader yourself?
um, my bookshelf would suggest that. I have a lot of books I need to read, but yeah, I read every once in a while. I'm not as big of a reader as I used to be.
Okay,
After I graduated school, I kind of took a break. So it's
sure.
been a few years since I've really sat down and read a whole book.
Got any old time favorites then?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
What's like one or two of your favorite books?
This is the book. It's probably, is it going to be backwards? It is going to be backwards.
Okay. No, you got no. It's backwards to you, but not to me. Let me
Oh,
see.
really?
Yeah, yeah. Turn it around.
Against the
Against the
Stream
Stream. Okay.
by Noah Levine. This book
Okay.
saved my life, man.
Okay.
I'm telling you, this
Why?
was a huge catalyst in saving my life. It's the subtext on it is a Buddhist manuscript for spiritual revolutionaries. I don't identify as being Buddhist, but I did identify with the way he talked about a process
Uh-huh.
that made me look at redefining certain things in my life, and I absolutely love that. Um, yeah, that's a good one.
You got one more on the
Um,
shelf? What's another one?
this is a pretty good one. I got two more I can show you. This book is an old book. It's actually from 1901. Varieties of Religious Experience
Okay.
by William James, the grandfather of American psychology.
Okay.
He says he's not qualified to talk of matters of God, but he is qualified to talk of matters regarding man or
Mm.
people.
Right.
And the idea of God or the pursuit of God has been in existence since man has existed. So there's a parallel there, and he talks in as through his experience with his clients about how what are the different ways that people have sought, and the one I, knowing a little bit about my story, the one that I identified with the most was called the sick man.
Mm.
And it's how you obtain your faith and your you obtain your faith and your power through staying in your sickness.
Mm.
And yeah, it's very profound. And so I like reading that. I'm like, how do I step out of my sickness to still retain some sort of positivity?
Sure.
But then a book I came across a handful of years ago, which I love, is John C. Maxwell, The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader.
Nice. Yes.
It's a good one. And Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. That's a good one. I'm a
Absolutely.
big fan of, I'm about halfway through this one. Creating True Peace, Ending Violence in Yourself, Your Family, Your Community, and the World by Thich Nhat Hanh.
Okay. Yeah. Nice,
And
man.
then the other one I'll plug is called Nonviolent Communication. Um,
Nice. Very cool, man.
yeah.
What 10 years goes by, you didn't screw up your son too much, and maybe you even got another child by that time. Who knows? What would you like to thank your son for 10 years from now?
Oh, 10 years from now, I'd like to thank him for loving me at my worst. I'd like to thank him for sharing with me
Hmm.
and letting me know who he is, allowing me to know who he is.
Nice. 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 I mean, and why is that? Why are those the things you're thanking him for?
That's the discord that we experience in this world. That's where hate stems from. Hate stems from not learning about each other. It stems from having these preconceived notions of what you think someone else is thinking or what they're all about when you have no idea. And what I try to teach my son is it's okay to love. He doesn't know what love is. He's 7. He says I love you because it's conditioned, but um I've taught him, I've showed him in the past, like, just because I say I love you doesn't mean you have to say it back to me. Like, I'm not saying it to get that response. I don't need that validation from you. It's
Right.
nice,
Sure.
but
Yeah. No.
but the idea that that all of the all of the hatred and the anger in the world stems from fear, and the fear stems from not coming from a place of being open with each other,
Okay. Yeah.
not learning the other person's side of the story, you
Right.
know.
Do you think? I mean, do you think a big fear is of not being open and loving to each other, but also let's say that we don't understand each other, and I have a question, and I'm just as afraid of the answer, and so I make up my own.
Sure, that's totally it. I remember my mom at some point asking me a question. I said, if the answer is not what you want it to be, are you willing to still ask the question?
Yeah. And
And she said, never mind, and walked away.
oh my gosh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and that's come up several times, through in people in my life. And I know that I've done it too. I've been, somebody crosses me the wrong way, a friend of mine or something. And they're like, can we talk about it? And I've had moments where I'm like, no, we cannot talk about this. I want nothing to do with you. Bye
Sure.
bye.
Sure.
And and I might come back 6 months later and be like, all right, I'm ready to receive this info now.
Sure, a big part of it's timing. Big part of it's timing, but I also enjoy the question of if you ask the question, are you prepared for the answer?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's definitely powerful. Um, Anything kind of fatherhood related that you think you want to touch on that we didn't?
Fatherhood related. Um, it's not necessarily fatherhood. Um, I'd like to encourage all people in partnerships out there to, or however the dynamic is, especially if you're divorced. That's my experience. Is I'm in a divorced partnership that uh, we try to come at it at ease. We try not to use the child as a weapon. We try to not do that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm behind on my child support, and she's been very understanding of it, and that is a blessing in my life to know, and for her to know that it's not just me dipping out, like it's me trying to put something together here, right?
Right. Right.
And having that open conversation, and um, you know, my heart goes out to kids who don't have a daddy in their life. I'm fortunate to be a part of my son's life. Um, there was a documentary I watched prior to the separation called Absent. It was on Netflix, and it follows 5 kids from I think the age of like 5 to like 15. It's like a 10-year span that they follow these kids, and each kid is a different experience of having an absent father. So like one kid's dad is always working, never at the house, like a corporate, CEO or whatever. One kid's dad died. One kid's dad is in the military. One kid's dad is a deadbeat. One kid's dad is a drug addict. So in some fashion, those dads are all absent, right? And it follows how each of these kids go through that absenteeism. And that was one of the most eye-opening documentaries as for my role as a parent.
Okay.
However, the dynamic of my relationship is to not just say fuck it and walk away. I gotta push through the hard times with my ex-wife. I have to be willing to hear what she has to say and approach any sort of discomforting scenario in a way that I can communicate it without her shutting down or me shutting down in the process as well. Um, And it all boils down to what I'd like to talk about a lot on my live streams, which is communication. And if you don't know how to communicate with your partner or your co-parent, maybe it's time you start communicating about how you communicate.
All right. That's
So
strong. What not that it's easy. Is there anything that you have found outside of communicating better that is working better for you as this goes forward, the relationship and co-parenting?
yeah, I take deep breaths and I be kind.
Yeah, that's
No
great.
matter what somebody throws at me, like there's no, can you, there's the question that I ask myself. Do I have the capacity to remain calm and kind if somebody hands me a shit salad? If somebody just comes in the room and engulfs me in their own shitstorm, and I'm just a target or I'm in the way, like I just happen to be in the line of fire, can I still remain calm and kind? Can I approach my partner or ex-partner in a way that says, it sets up boundaries, promotes love and kindness, and doesn't trigger me in a way that escalates the situation?
Right.
The moment I can find the capacity to do all of that in a split second, or even if I don't, then recognize that I didn't, take that deep breath and be like, hold on, I don't want to come at you this way.
Sure.
The moment that happens, that whole dynamic shifts into closer into a positive space where productivity and construction happens, positive construction for that relationship, for that dynamic, that family dynamic, whatever it is.
Right.
So there's this thing, I'm going to touch on this. I don't know how much time we have. There's this thing that I always kind of draw back on and it doesn't provide me any tools. It just provides me a quick reminder of everybody else is going through something. And it's called the family systems theory. Are you familiar?
I'm not.
So family systems theory is the short version. I'll keep it short. Is we are all on, like children's mobile, like you have a baby in a crib and it's got the little mobile,
Yeah, man.
right? So we are all structured in many different angles and avenues in our own mobile, right? Let's take the family, for instance. You have this mobile. Each dangling thing is a member of your family. You, your wife, your kid, one kid, two kid, whatever, however many kids. You have got like 2 or 3 kids, right?
The 2 kids and the dog.
Okay, and the dog. So dog's a part of that. You also have your parents. You might have, aunts or uncles, grandparents, whatever's going on there.
Sure.
Something happens. Car accident, tragic death in the family, expected death in the family, new baby born, something happened, dog gets sick. What ends up happening is life comes around. That's what happened. Life happens.
Yeah.
Here's life. Life
Sure.
comes around, snips that piece off. It is either dangling now or it falls completely off. That's
Right.
my experience with when my dad passed. Was suddenly my dad's piece of that mobile fell off.
Right.
And when you clip something off of a mobile, it's chaotic and it can't find its balance, right?
Right.
So it's shaking until it finally settles down and finds where it balances right. That might be 1 year, that might be 17 years.
Right.
But realizing that there might be somebody experiencing some level of chaos in their life allows me to approach a room or a situation with a little bit more compassion, realizing it's not all about me. They might have something else going on that I don't know about.
Right.
So, and taking that into the dynamic of my relationships, platonic, romantic, or otherwise, it's been beneficial to keep that in the back of my head. Like, oh, I'm just adding to that chaos, or am I adding to that chaos, or am I not?
Sure.
Like, how am I affecting this? So
Right. That's cool, man. That's a great, I love the approach. I really do. And I would call that a tool, man. It's definitely a tool. And thank you for sharing it. Where can we send people to find you? Say this goes to the podcast. They don't even know how to find Facebook. I don't know how they know how to get a podcast, but not on the Facebook. But let's just pretend that happened. Where do they go find you?
oh, everybody blow up my man Brandon Hanley. He'll know how to reach me.
He's on Facebook. Oh, good. That's
Yeah, Facebook at Elo Solarii, or Elo Draws Things.
Spell it out, brother.
ELOSOLARII.
Nice.
You can also find me at Elo Draws Things on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram at Solarii, ESOLARII.
Awesome.
And I do some stuff on Periscope and Twitter, but it's all secondhand stuff, so don't worry about that one.
Very cool. Well, brother, thanks for stepping on today. I think it was an awesome conversation, and I'm sure that we've inspired some other people to maybe take a different approach. You've given out a lot of great ways to approach situations that maybe others haven't thought of themselves before. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Here today.
Yeah, and real quick, just a quick side note: if you're a viewer and you're struggling with some sort of addiction, reach out. Whether it's me or someone else, let somebody know you're struggling. That there's a way out, and it doesn't have to be a negative way out. I'm living proof.
Right on, brother.
All right, thanks for having me, man.
You got it.